We're always taught that to succeed at work, you've got to wear this heavy armor of professional distance and cool. But what if that exact armor is the very thing holding you back? Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're tearing down the old-school command and control leadership playbook. Instead, we're going to dig into how true, unshakable internal authority is actually built. And spoiler alert, it all comes down to the literal root of human connection: vulnerability and trust.
So think about this for a second. Where does your internal authority really come from? For decades, right, leaders have been told to project 100% confidence 100% of the time. We put up this massive facade because we want to look bulletproof. There's this deep fear that if we expose even a tiny soft spot, someone's going to swoop in and take advantage of it. But here's the catch, and it's a big one. Humans are literally neurologically wired to be walking, talking lie detectors. We subconsciously pick up on all these subtle little expressions so we know when someone is faking it. Trying to project this perfect, unyielding image, it almost always backfires. Putting up a false front doesn't earn you respect, it just creates weird discomfort and total disconnection. So today we're looking at the pursuit of genuine presence and why dropping that heavy armor is, without a doubt, your most powerful leadership tool.
Which brings us to an absolutely crucial definition. If you look at the work of Brené Brown, she's a massive expert on social connection, she points out that vulnerability is the absolute root of how we connect with others. Now, let's be crystal clear here. Vulnerability does not mean being weak, and it definitely doesn't mean being submissive. It's actually the exact opposite. It's the ultimate courage to just be yourself. It means consciously taking that professional distance and replacing it with uncertainty, risk, and true emotional exposure. When you try to act perfect just to demand respect from your team, that pretense actually pushes people away. It's empathy and authenticity that actually draw them in.
And this brings up a pretty fascinating paradox in how we lead. Most of us, we work incredibly hard to prove our competence right out of the gate. We want to be the smartest person in the room, the first one to tackle a giant challenge. But honestly, putting competence first can completely undermine your leadership. Without a solid foundation of warmth and trust, an organization can just instantly degenerate into this toxic every employee for himself survival culture. Sure, people might outwardly nod and comply with your demands, but behind closed doors, they aren't buying into the mission. On the flip side, connecting with a warmth-first approach completely changes the game. It establishes trust, and trust is the ultimate conduit for real influence. It's what actually enables honest information sharing, genuine cooperation, and the open exchange of ideas.
The science behind this is just fascinating. Research by Amy Cuddy, Susan Fisk, and Peter Glick shows that our brains actually make what they call spontaneous trait inferences the second we meet someone. Basically, we evaluate a person's warmth and trustworthiness way before we even think about assessing their competence. Think about it. If you're highly competent but you have zero warmth, you might get some passive support or even elicit a bit of envy, but you are never going to earn true, deep engagement. Putting warmth first isn't just a nice to have. It is the absolute foundation for leading other human beings. Now, cultivating this kind of approachability, it's not just some fluffy, soft skill. It's really about creating space for human dignity instead of just knee-jerk reactivity. It's this profound shift from maintaining an unyielding, rigid exterior to opening up a dynamic, colorful space for real human connection. When leaders actually adopt an authentic, vulnerable stance, it's like a breath of fresh air. Employees finally get to see them as actual human beings.
But let's get practical for a second. What does this actually look like on, say, a random Tuesday morning at the office? Well, it shows up in simple, everyday acts of vulnerability. And the opportunities for this are literally everywhere. It's as simple as asking a team member for help when you're stuck. It's taking genuine responsibility for a project that went off the rails, rather than passing the buck. Sometimes, it's sitting by the bedside of an ill colleague, or just picking up the phone to check on an employee's sick kid. These little actions, they're huge. They prompt your team to actually share valuable advice with you. And they foster a much more horizontal, way less rigid team structure.
Another really profound display of vulnerability at work is forgiveness. Now, true forgiveness doesn't mean just blindly tolerating errors. Rather, it's about a patient encouragement of growth. Just think about the incredible psychological safety that creates. When a leader gives people the time to actually learn and fix their mistakes instead of just blowing up with immediate anger, that requires immense vulnerability and patience on the leader's part. But the payoff? It's a massive, direct boost in trust. It literally breeds long-term organizational resilience, which is exactly what helps a company weather the storm during times of immense stress. Speaking of stress, what happens when the stakes are at their absolute highest? A massive corporate crisis is pretty much the ultimate test of vulnerability. The corporate apology has kind of become a normal part of the business world, right? But let me tell you, they are definitely not all created equal. Take Mary Barra, the CEO of General Motors, during their massive safety scandals a while back. She didn't hide behind a bunch of PR spin or corporate jargon. In her public apology, she was completely unequivocal. She just came out and said, "This should never have happened. It is simply unacceptable." That right there, that is what authenticity in a crisis looks like. And the data on how we perceive these public apologies will completely blow your mind. Researchers actually examined video apologies from different CEOs and tracked their facial expressions second by second. When a CEO delivered an apology with a totally neutral expression, or yikes, a smile, study participants trusted them significantly less. It actually made people angrier, and the company's stock price would drop. But, and here is the really incredible part, when a CEO appeared genuinely sad, showing real vulnerability and contrition, participants rated them as far more sincere. Amazingly enough, showing genuine sadness actually raised post-apology stock prices. It boosted long-term investor confidence. The takeaway here, when you mess up, admit it, and look appropriately sad about it. As humans, we resonate way too deeply with one another to just ignore inauthenticity. Of course, constantly managing this tension is completely exhausting. Balancing your authority with approachability, caring deeply about your team while still having to make the really tough calls, it takes a lot out of you. Grounded leadership requires a massive, firm foundation. You simply cannot sustain that level of authentic exposure if you don't have a solid internal architecture supporting you behind the scenes. Getting to know your authentic self takes serious courage because you have to honestly examine your own personal experiences and, yeah, your blind spots too. This is exactly why truly authentic leaders know they absolutely cannot survive in a vacuum. Because leadership is such high-stress work, the best leaders actively build multifaceted support teams around themselves. We're talking spouses, mentors, peer groups, or spiritual communities. You desperately need these safe spaces to receive honest, unfiltered feedback. You need them to stay grounded and to be reminded of who you are at your absolute core, not just what your job title says on your business card. You aren't just relying on a neat little list of networking contacts here. You are building a lifeline.
To give you an idea of just how deep this kind of support needs to go, consider Tad Piper. He's an executive who is part of an Alcoholics Anonymous group. He found this profound, life-changing strength in a room where he wasn't the CEO. He was just a hard-working person trying to stay sober and lead a good life. As he notes, the people in that room reinforce each other's behavior through disciplined, completely honest discussion. It is a space of pure, open vulnerability. It all starts with having at least one place, or even just one person, in your life where you can be completely yourself, warts and all, and be accepted unconditionally. That is the true engine of internal authority.
Which brings us to our final thought for today. The research is absolutely clear on this. Human connection is so often missing at work simply because we're taught to keep our distance. But the leaders who truly succeed, the ones who foster a level of deep loyalty and crazy productivity that a paycheck simply cannot buy, are the ones who dare to connect first. So I want to leave you with this question. What piece of professional armor are you willing to drop today to build genuine alignment with your team?